Welcome one, welcome all to a topic I've had in my head for quite some time, ever since I did these playthroughs with my friends. And I'm talking about Borderlands 3 versus Borderlands 2. Now, it wasn't that long ago that this wasn't a topic at all in my head. Borderlands 3 was my favorite in the franchise for so long, and it was without a doubt in my mind. I honestly thought it silly to even think Borderlands 2 was better, because Borderlands 3 just has better gameplay and endgame to me, in my personal opinion. It was so much more satisfying, but that changed a while back when I did my co-op run with some friends, and now, if I had to pick one, I'm not sure which one I'd pick. So today we run down the major pieces of a Borderlands game, story, gameplay, endgame, etc. And I give my personal 2 cents on which games I'd prefer in each specific category and why. So, being the controversial nature that this video is to the Borderlands community, let's stick with that and go with a talking point that everyone loves talking about, the story. For simplicity's sake, let's define the story as the main objectives. All the things that are just in the main objectives, right? And this one used to annoy me because a lot of people would say Borderlands 2, and I would always think it's not Borderlands 2 story that you love, it's Handsome Jack, and that's a character that you love. But with going back and replaying Borderlands 2 and then replaying Borderlands 3, yeah, I realized, I'm gonna be honest, I like Borderlands 2's story a lot better. And it's purely because of the pacing of the game. Compared to Borderlands 3, I don't feel like there is a spot in Borderlands 2 where it really slows down that much. Borderlands 3's pacing it has to be one of the worst, if not the worst, I've experienced in my personal experience playing any game. Now, going back to Borderlands 2, and then in tandem, because with Borderlands 3, I played it so much that eventually I modded where there's this this dialogue skip mod and then an expanded dialogue skip mod that I used, and it basically would just skip all the dialogue and such, and I wouldn't have to hear any of it, and it would just immediately click to the next objective every time I did one. So I used those for so long that honestly I forgot what it was like to play without them, I guess. I knew it was bad, but I forgot how bad until I played with my friend Max, and I played Borderlands 3 through and through and without any mods, and the pacing just, oh my god, I forgot really how bad it can be. The amount of time you spend just sitting there waiting for dialogue to be over, I can't stand it. And it's like, even in Borderlands 2, there's not nearly as much. Usually you're able to just move on and they'll talk to you over the echo, which is what this is what I want for Borderlands 4. Not to go on a rant about this, I need to move on to other things, but I'm just saying, like, I want in Borderlands 4 for everything to be able to be turned in through the echo. I don't want to have to run back to Sanctuary a million times to talk to Lilith. And I don't, there's no reason to have to go back to a bounty board or any of that. When you have this echo thing, it's like you connect to the echo net and you can just turn everything in, and then they can talk to you over the echo and immediately move that objective to the next one, so that if I don't want to sit there and listen to the dialogue the first time I play, maybe the second time I play, I'll want to do that. First time I play, no. Third, fourth, 100th time I play, I don't want to listen to it anymore. I'm done. I've heard the campaign. I know what it's about. Let me just move on and play. Make it all about the gameplay. Because I'm somebody that loves playing the story over and over and over, as all the different characters, trying to make numerous different builds and all these things, doing different challenge runs and stuff. I love doing all that. But that stuff aside, Borderlands 2 takes the cake with the story, in my opinion, just because I like the villain in the story much more. I like the pacing way more. Yeah, and it's just that. It's just all those little things in tandem. And playing Borderlands 3 again without any mods really reminded me how bad that pacing is. So Borderlands 2 gets a win in my book for story. And with that, we move on to the playable characters from Borderlands 2 and Borderlands 3. My biggest thing that I recognized is in my run with Borderlands 2, I played as Zero for the first time ever from start to finish of the story. Every time I tried to play as Zero, I kind of got to around like level 10, 15, fell off, never actually, finished the game or anything, and just quit and played as somebody else. This time, I really locked myself in and played as Zero, and from start to finish, and I loved him. I absolutely loved it. I just wanted to play as him more and more. I started in True Vault Hunter mode and continued playing as him. And every now and then I hop back into that file and I just kind of play as him a little bit more and a little bit more. And it's the only hole I've noticed in Borderlands 3 with the playable characters. And I mean, admittedly, I think it's a pretty big one because Borderlands 3 has so much diversity with all of their playable characters, and I love literally every single one of them. But after my run in Borderlands 2, playing as Zero, I was disappointed because I went the melee route with Zero, and going to Borderlands 3, there's a hint of disappointment there where you're not gonna find a Zero in Borderlands 3. There's nothing that allows for the same melee playability as Borderlands 2 had with Zero, then you're not going to find that in Borderlands 3. Borderlands 3's melee build is a lot of like, oh, well, here's the face puncher, and it's like, okay, this is like melee build by numbers, but that's about it. Like, statistically, it's a melee build, but I'm using a gun still. And Amara just doesn't capture the feeling of a melee build like Zero did. He was so much fun. I absolutely loved it. And so again, like, that's the only hole in Borderlands 3. It could be a big one depending on who you are. I'm not a huge melee guy. Zero turned me into one a little bit, but I personally, with playable characters, I'm gonna have to go with Borderlands 3 just because every character I love. Borderlands 2, it's not quite that. There's a couple of characters where I'm so-so about them, and that is Gage and Axton. Gage, I just honestly didn't really enjoy. And then Axton, I enjoyed. I mean, he's actually the first character I ever maxed out, like OP8 and all that stuff, back before OP10 and all that. And I liked him, but I wouldn't say I enjoy him more than any other Borderlands 2 character, except for Gage, and any other Borderlands 3 character. So there's a couple there that I'm just kind of like meh about. I loved Krieg. I thought he was kind of fun in a very different way. The Gunzerker is just always fun to mess around in. And then Maya was another one of my first characters. I think she was actually my first character I ever played as. But for some reason, Axton is the first one I maxed out. And with Borderlands 3 in the playable character department, I just love the 4th skill trees. I don't know, personally, I kind of like it better than another playable character. I don't know, I think I'm gonna get a lot of flack for saying that. I don't think a lot of people are gonna agree with me there. But I just really loved when they added the 4th skill tree, and it honestly just felt like a new playable character to me. But it was like 4 characters that got them. Granted, Flack's 4th skill tree isn't the best one, but it still feels like if you build them out with it and everything, which I usually don't, but it still feels like a whole new character got added to the game in my eyes. I get that there's going to be a lot of people that disagree with me on that, but I personally loved the 4th skill trees. So my end result is Borderlands 3 gets the win for the playable characters in my eyes. I don't know. I just really like every playable character in Borderlands 3. There is so many different ways to build out each and every single one of them that it's like, I feel like it's impossible not to like all of them. I think there's a build for each character that would make everyone like each of them. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's just how I feel about it. And so now we move on to the gameplay, which I'm just gonna say right now, it's Borderlands 3. I think Borderlands 3 is just a pure improvement gameplay-wise from Borderlands 2 through and through. It has clambering or mantling, whatever you want to call it, and then, sliding, and it just feels smoother, and it's just, in my eyes, it's just better in every single possible way. It's just improved upon. It's just modern first-person gaming. Like, it's just that. It's just all the mechanics are better. I'd say the biggest issue in the gameplay department is probably the visual pollution for Borderlands 3, especially if you play as Moze. But honestly, I'd still give it to Borderlands 3. It's like, it's just leagues above Borderlands 2 in my eyes. So yeah, gameplay, Borderlands 3. And now we get to the co-op aspect. And for some reason, I know this is going to be lame, but for some reason I'm going to give this one a tie. And I think a lot of people are going to be surprised by that. But I played Borderlands 3 co-op for the first time in a long time. And I know it's just the UI, but so much is missing from the UI. And then it had this glitch where we wouldn't see each other's names a lot of times, and it was really annoying because then we didn't know where each other were. In Borderlands 2, everything co-op wise just worked. And it worked well. And I get that, you know, Borderlands 3 has so much improvement with the level instancing and everything, so like we could be completely different levels and still be on the same page, or, you know, the guns, you don't have to fight over them anymore. But I really didn't even feel that playing with my friend. Like, we really weren't fighting over the loot because we played as completely different characters and we had completely different builds. And so it was just like, hey, this is good for you. Do you want this? Oh, yeah, sure. And, you know, things like that. It really didn't feel like we were fighting for the loot. And maybe others would totally disagree with me on this, but Borderlands 3 just had so many issues to me with the co-op and these weird instances of like lag or glitches and things like that due to the co-op, and the UI being glitchy and the UI just lacking, and the revive thing not being in your face, so it's like I have to shout that I'm down a bunch of times so that my friend can acknowledge that I'm down. It's just annoying. The co-op to me in Borderlands 3 just isn't nearly as enjoyable as it was in Borderlands 2. So with that, I ask Gearbox to please make it so that the UI really showcases that you have your friends in the game. Like, put the thing in the top corner and like let the class mod name be there, and show the health and shield and who they're playing as and all that stuff. Like, a lot of that's missing, and make it more obvious that the revive is needed by your teammate without them having to shout at you. Like, because the symbol for revive like is just non-existent almost in Borderlands 3. But I mean, I give Borderlands 3 its major credit for the big things that it did with the level instancing and the weapons being separate drops and all that, so that nobody has to fight over it. So I claim it as a tie, personally. I don't know if people will agree with me on that or not, but yeah, so I give co-op a tie. I got 3 more topics here, and I wasn't sure whether to include these or not, but I decided to, and the next one's gonna be characters. And I'm gonna be honest, I just think straight up this one goes to Borderlands 2. I just like a lot of the characters more that you get to interact with in Borderlands 2, and even the ones you get to interact with that are the same in 3, I think I like a lot of the interactions better in Borderlands 2, but the fact that Scooter and Dr. Zed are there, that alone really caps it off for me as just a complete win in Borderlands 2. Like, all the characters are in Sanctuary, and you can just, you know, it's just, you get their personality. You get all the personalities right there in that one space, and I love it. There's some great new characters from Borderlands 3, but it just doesn't do it for me. Like, going back, maybe it's nostalgia talking this point out, you know, but going back to Borderlands 2 and going into Sanctuary and hearing all the different personalities right there, all the major ones that Borderlands created, I love it. So yeah, Borderlands 2 wins on that one. Alright, so I thought about it, and overall I'd rather leave Endgame out of this one, which I know is so weird, but I honestly don't have a ton of experience with the endgame of Borderlands 2, and I think it's unfair. So, I mean, if I had to pick, I'd say Borderlands 3, and I love Borderlands 3's endgame to a T. I've tried Borderlands 2's, I got to OP8 and everything way back when, and all that stuff. It wasn't for me, but I never truly really played the end game that much for Borderlands 2, so again, if I had to pick, it would be Borderlands 3, and I feel like in a video like this it should be more of a topic, but again, I feel like it's almost unfair because I don't have the experience with Borderlands 2 endgame like I do with Borderlands 3 endgame. So just to quickly wrap this topic up, yeah, it's it's Borderlands 3 for me. Now we go to side quest, and this one at first for me was really difficult to choose from, but in the end I came away from it deciding on Borderlands 3. I feel like a lot of people are going to be annoyed again at me with this one, but I had to go with Borderlands 3 because Private Beans, this dude should have been a main villain. Private Beans should have been a main villain, and he's stuck in a side quest, and it's like one of my favorite ones of all time. On top of that, my god, I'm gonna forget the name of the side quest. It's like Feeble and Furious or something like that with the old man, and he's just shouting these ridiculous insults the whole way through. The first time I played it, and still to this day when I play it, I laugh every time. He has just some of the most ridiculous insults, and it's hilarious, and I love it. And there's so many side quests to me. Chad, that's another one. There's so many side quests to me that stand out, and I remember from Borderlands 3, and I love them all. Well, almost all of them. I really do, though. I really like the Borderlands 3 side quests a lot. And I remember more of them than Borderlands 2, and I think that's kind of what got me to decide on this. It was because memory for me, first of all, I have terrible memory. So if I can remember a lot of things from a game, then that's a huge impact on me. That leaves a lasting impact on me, and that's massive. So Borderlands 3 wins this. Private Beans alone, I think, takes the cake on this one, personally. And the last category we have here is the DLC / updates. Yeah, this is another one going to Borderlands 3. For me, personally, this is going to Borderlands 3 all day and night. There isn't even a single question about it. Borderlands 3, if you didn't stick through playing Borderlands 3 while the DLCs were getting released and updates were coming out, I just think you missed out on one of the most special things Borderlands has to offer, because I don't think we're ever getting the kind of content that Borderlands 3 got post-launch. It is ridiculous. We got, weekly updates for Borderlands 3, and I know most people, when I talk about updates, I feel like are just gonna look back and say, oh yeah, when they nerfed everything, how great. They nerfed everything for like the first couple months, and then beyond that, they didn't nerf things for so long. And then when they did, it was well deserved. Like the recursion getting a nerf because it was like crashing Xboxes and freezing up PCs. As much as I enjoyed it personally and loved it, I get where some people were like, okay, this is just an unusable weapon for me if you're on a console. I totally get that. So it's like the updates were so good for Borderlands 3 for the most part, and I love the DLCs. We got 5 DLCs that are worth 6 hours, 8 hours of gameplay each. That's insane. And they were $15 a piece. And we got a 6th DLC that added a whole new mode to the game, which is honestly pretty fun. Like, even my friends that didn't enjoy Borderlands 3 as much went into this and enjoyed this mode. They thought it was great. They thought it was something different. It had a different feeling to the game. So I get it's not for everybody, but I thought it was a lot of fun. And, you know, it can get frustrating at times because it can be difficult, but hey, so can any game. So I really enjoyed all the DLCs from Borderlands 3. The updates, I mean, we got free content updates. When did that happen in Borderlands 2? When did that happen in Borderlands 1, the pre-sequel? Any of them? It didn't happen. Even in Wonderlands, it didn't happen. In Borderlands 3, we got I'll give the Malin takedown to anybody that wants to discredit something, because I did feel like when that came out, it should have been here at launch type thing. I still love it. It's one of the best pieces of content that Borderlands 3 has, but I'll give that to anybody that wants to discredit something, because I did feel like when it came out, it should have been there at launch. It felt like the raid that was missing from the game. But for free, we got all of the events they did, the Cartel, the Broken Heart, the Haunt event. We got 3 different events, and then eventually they just gave them for free. You can just toggle any of them on or off, and you can toggle them at any given time throughout the playthrough, and that is incredible. One of the best things, in my opinion, that happened to Borderlands 3 was that they updated the mayhem and everything, and that was a messy ride if you were in for it. But the end result, in my opinion, is great. I'm not saying the updates and everything were perfect. They did a lot of balancing, a lot of this and that, and not all of the balance updates were perfect. I think they really worked hard at it for a long, long time, And I think it's the best that I've seen in a Borderlands. There's so many different things that are usable in Endgame for Borderlands 3. There's so much you can do for builds and different weapons to use and all these things that you can make just relevant in Endgame by making the right build for it. I didn't even mention the Guardian takedown. Like, all these things are free updates added to the game. It's just absolutely crazy. Regardless of what you think of the Guardian takedown, it was free. That's absolutely crazy. And even going back, when I think of the cartel event or the haunt event with all the haunted loot that you can get in the anointments, all that gear, all that loot was free. All the cartel event stuff was free. The OPQ system, all this stuff was just added to the game with no charge. And on top of that, they purposely kept a lot of the base game, a lot of the free things, a lot of what came with just the base game. They kept a lot of that relevant for Endgame on purpose. I will, like, there's obviously a lot of good loot in the DLCs, but they on purpose kept a lot of base game things relevant to Endgame so that nobody felt like they were left out if they didn't have content or couldn't afford it. And that is special to me. That's special. The fact that they went through all these updates, all this content, and kept things at base game relevant. Maybe there is one out there, but I genuinely can't think of another looter shooter that goes through all these updates and DLCs and everything and keeps base game things relevant. They always want to move on and keep something new to be the most powerful thing, and that wasn't always the case in Borderlands 3. So I don't mean to sound like a grider here, but Borderlands 3 was just amazing in my eyes, and I really loved the updates, DLCs, and all that stuff. Borderlands 3, I guess, in the tallies, it wins, but honestly, I like both. I love both. I mean, that's the reality, is people want to pit games against each other and, you know, make this like which one's better and have to give this, you know, answer. But I love them both, and I still play them both to this day. Me and my friend were talking and saying, I mean, if Borderlands 3 gameplay and endgame and stuff existed with Borderlands 2's pacing and story and all that, what an incredible game that would be. It would be, I genuinely think it would be the perfect Borderlands. So let me know what y'all think down below. What do you think of my answers? What are your answers for each of these topics? You know, the gameplay, which one wins for you? Story, which one wins for you? Side quests, updates, DLCs, all those things. What do you think of each of these categories? Let me know down below. I can't wait to hear from y'all. And that's that. So I'll see y'all in the next one. Hope y'all enjoyed. Peace.